The distress signal came first as a faint whisper in the void of space, repeating every 30 seconds, the same desperate message over and over. Its tone was strange, not like a standard emergency code, but stretched and trembling as if whoever sent it was not only afraid but in pain. The signal traveled far, carried on ancient communication, bands most civilizations no longer used. When the larger empires of the galaxy first picked it up, they quickly traced its origin to a remote and uncharted area humans called Black Reach. Black Reach was not on any common star maps, and the few records that existed marked it as restricted space filled with debris fields, strange energy readings, and unexplained disappearances. It was a place most navigators avoided without being told. The coordinates matched the last known location of the Ninth Fleet, the most feared and advanced warfleet in the galaxy. The Ninth Fleet was made of colossal warships armed with weapons that could split moons and defended by elite crews trained for decades. They were the pride of their people, undefeated in every known conflict. Yet for 3 months there had been no word from them, no patrols, no supply requests. Only silence when the distress signal began. Many alien governments quietly chose to ignore it. They told themselves it was probably a trap or a malfunction. Others said it was better not to know what had happened, because if something could destroy the Ninth Fleet, it was better left alone. Still, there were some who were curious and ambitious. They wondered if the fleet had discovered something valuable in that dark region, perhaps ancient technology or a new power source worth the risk. Meanwhile, humanity's deep space listening post detected the signal as well. On the surface, the message was like the one the other species heard, but human analysts noticed something in the background, a low rhythmic pattern, faint but constant. It was not static, and it was not an error. It was a sound humanity recognized immediately. It was the slow beat of war drums. The sound made human commanders uneasy and quiet in a way that confused their alien allies. When the signal was played in the human military council room, the air seemed to grow colder. The younger officers did not understand, but the older ones exchanged grim looks and said nothing. There was history in that sound, a history no alien knew. Humanity did not rush to the Galactic Council with their discovery. They did not warn or explain. Instead, they began silent preparations, calling ships back from distant patrols, moving supply lines into secure routes, and activating old defense protocols kept hidden for decades. The leaders knew exactly what the drums meant, and exactly why the Ninth Fleet had vanished. They also knew that if they told the truth, no one would believe them across. The Galaxy news networks reported on the mysterious signal. Some claimed the Ninth Fleet had been ambushed by an unknown enemy. Others speculated it was a secret human attack, though there was no evidence. The council held an emergency session to discuss the situation. Alien leaders argued loudly about whether to send an investigation team. Some feared the unknown danger, others saw a chance to weaken a rival by learning what had destroyed their greatest fleet. Humanity's ambassador attended, but said little. The ambassador's eyes stayed on the floor, as if already knowing how the story would end. The other species demanded to know why the humans were so quiet, but received no answer. The signal kept playing in the background of all discussions, steady and relentless. Every 30 seconds, the same broken voice repeated its desperate call for help, followed by the distant echo of drums. The voice belonged to someone in the Ninth Fleet, but it was strange, as if the words were forced out slowly between breaths. The aliens dismissed the background noise as interference, but humans heard the truth in it. The drums were not part of the message. They were something else, listening, waiting, marking time. The longer the signal played, the more human officers avoided talking about it. Some avoided even listening, as if afraid the sound might follow them home for the rest of the galaxy. The signal was only a mystery for humanity. It was a warning. The Ninth Fleet had not simply vanished. It had gone somewhere it should never have gone, and met something that should never have been disturbed. The humans knew this because long ago they had been there themselves. They knew what lived in Black Reach and why no one returned. The war drums were not a sign of hope. They were the announcement of a hunt that had begun again when the Galactic Council finally demanded a direct statement. The human ambassador rose slowly and spoke only one sentence: "If you value your worlds, do not go looking for them." The room fell silent at first, then erupted in laughter and accusations. The aliens thought the humans were trying To hide a secret or keep valuable technology for themselves, they ignored the warning and began planning their own search missions, confident their strength would protect them. Humanity watched without argument. They did not try to convince anyone. Further, they knew those who entered Black Reach would not be coming back outside. The great halls of the council, the signal still pulsed through the stars, repeating endlessly, carrying the same final plea of the Ninth Fleet mixed with the slow heartbeat of the drums somewhere in the cold emptiness of Black Reach. Something ancient listened and waited. Its prey had come to it once more, and this time it was hungry. Humanity did not need to guess what would happen next. They already knew because they were the only ones who had ever faced it and lived. The Galactic Council chamber was filled with voices raised in argument as the signal from Black Reach played quietly in the background, repeating its desperate words every 30 seconds. Some alien leaders wanted to send a rescue fleet at once, saying it was their duty to recover the Ninth Fleet, no matter the danger. Others warned that the region was cursed, and that the signal itself might be a trap set by an enemy waiting to ambush any ships that entered. But the strongest voice came from High Admiral Sarith, the alien commander who had once led the Ninth Fleet himself before retiring. He stood tall in his ceremonial armor, his eyes sharp with pride. He said the Ninth Fleet could not be gone completely. There had to be survivors. He refused to believe they had been destroyed without a fight. He said they were the most powerful force in the galaxy, and that no unknown danger could destroy them without leaving some kind of wreckage to prove it. Humanity's ambassador sat in the shadows at the far side of the chamber, saying nothing. The other species noticed this silence and grew suspicious. They accused the humans of knowing more than they admitted. Some said humanity must have been involved in the Ninth Fleet's disappearance. Others whispered that perhaps the humans had discovered a new superweapon and were hiding it. The ambassador ignored all the accusations, but finally when Admiral Sarith demanded their opinion, the human stood and said slowly and clearly, "If you value your worlds, do not go looking for them." The words were simple, but they cut through the noise of the chamber. The laughter that followed was loud and mocking. The alien leaders dismissed it as human arrogance or fear. 3 scout ships were ordered to enter Black Reach. They would travel separately, each taking a different route to avoid ambush. The crews were made up of volunteers from multiple species, eager for glory and reward if they found survivors or valuable technology. The humans offered no ships and no assistance. The ambassador simply said, "You will find nothing you wish to see." This only deepened the council's anger and suspicion. Some called the humans cowards. Others called them manipulators using fear to keep others away from something valuable. As the scout ships departed, the council chamber emptied, but the signal continued to pulse through the stars. Each time it played, the human representatives turned away as if refusing to hear it. The alien delegates laughed among themselves, saying the humans were simply afraid of the unknown. They said fear made them weak, said the galaxy had moved beyond such primitive thinking. Humanity listened, but gave no answer. Their silence was not weakness. It was knowledge that those 3 scout ships had just sailed into the mouth of something that did not let prey escape. Days passed, and the first report came back. The first scout ship had returned, but barely. Its hull was scarred and burned, as if scraped by something larger than a warship. The crew refused to speak at first. When the council finally forced them to talk, their story was confused and broken. They spoke of shapes moving in the darkness, too big to be ships, too fast to be asteroids. They spoke of red lights like eyes watching them through the void, and of shadows that seemed to stretch and breathe. One crew member swore they heard footsteps on the hull, even though they were in deep space. Another said they had seen something tear apart one of their escort drones with its bare hands. The other 2 scout ships never reported back. The council argued again. Some demanded the search be called off. Others said this only proved there was something powerful worth finding. Humanity remained silent through every debate. Their silence was heavier now. Ambassador's face showed no emotion, but their eyes were hard and cold. The alien leaders could not understand why humans refused to help investigate, but in truth, the humans already knew what had happened to the missing scouts, just as they knew what had happened to the Ninth Fleet. The council voted to continue the search, sending larger groups of ships into Black Reach to look for clues they still believed they could succeed where others had failed. The human ambassador simply stood and left the chamber without a word. The alien leaders thought this was proof that the humans were hiding something, but the truth was far worse. Humanity was not hiding treasure or technology. Humanity was hiding the truth of what lived in Black Reach, and they knew that every ship sent there was not just doomed, but feeding the thing that waited in the dark far away. The signal from the Ninth Fleet played on, repeating the same desperate call, and beneath it, the low, steady beat of the war drums. The galaxy thought the sound was meaningless noise. Only the humans understood. It was counting down. The hunt had begun, and the prey had just entered the field again. The first scout ship that had returned to the Council docks was surrounded by security teams and medical officers as soon as it landed. Its outer armor was ripped open in several places as if something had clawed straight through the metal. The crews staggered out one by one, their faces pale, their eyes hollow. They did not look like soldiers returning from a mission. They looked like survivors of a disaster, too big for words. The captain refused to speak at all, staring at the floor as if afraid that saying anything might bring back what he had seen. The few crew members who could talk gave broken reports, speaking of movement in the darkness, movement that followed them no matter which way they turned. They said their scanners had picked up hundreds of signals closing in on them, but there had been nothing visible until the lights appeared. Red dots in the void, hundreds of them blinking in the blackness, moving in perfect silence and perfect formation. One officer whispered that the red lights were eyes, and that the thing behind them was too big to see in one view screen, though. Council dismissed some of these reports as hallucinations caused by fear or stress. They told themselves the crew was simply traumatized and that there was no real proof of danger. The two other scout ships had not returned, but the Council assumed they were simply delayed due to navigation errors or communication failures. A few voices called for caution, but High Admiral Sarith was not one of them. He insisted on sending more ships into Black Reach. Said the first scout ship had returned, which meant it was possible to survive the journey. Humanity's ambassador watched all of this silently. The alien leaders took this silence as weakness or guilt, but in truth it was neither. It was patience. Humans already knew how this would end, and they saw no reason to waste their breath trying to stop those who would not listen. Late one night, a small cargo vessel stumbled out of Black Reach without warning. It was not one of the scouts. It was an old civilian transport ship, heavily damaged, with only one life pod still functioning. The crew inside was dead, all except one survivor, a frail alien officer who had once served in the Ninth Fleet. His body was thin, his eyes wide and bloodshot. He trembled even when wrapped in thermal blankets. He spoke only in bursts, his voice cracking as if every word hurt to say. He told them the Ninth Fleet had never fought a battle. In Black Reach, they had not even fired a shot. Something had come for them from all directions at once. It surrounded them without being seen. It had torn through their ships from the inside. As if the walls meant nothing, he said they had been hunted, and the hunting had been slow, deliberate, like a predator toying with prey before the kill win. Asked what the attackers looked like, his answer froze the room. He said they looked like humans, but wrong. Their movements were too fast, too precise, and their faces were empty of emotion. He said the only sound during the attacks was the beating of drums echoing through the ship. Corridors like a countdown to death. The council members scoffed at this explanation. They told themselves the survivor was confused, and his mind was broken from stress. But some of them glanced toward the human ambassador, as if expecting a reaction. The ambassador gave none. Their face was calm, but their eyes were like stone. The story spread quickly through the galaxies. News channels, some dismissed it immediately, others turned it into a wild tale of human monsters and secret weapons. None of them came close to the truth. Humanity kept quiet, letting the rumors swirl. The more the aliens tried to uncover the mystery, the closer they came to something they could not understand. The humans knew this because they had faced it long before the Ninth Fleet had ever set foot in Black Reach, and they knew what the outcome would be for anyone else who dared entering. The shadows of human military stations' preparations continued. Fleets were recalled, and older ships were quietly upgraded with weapons designed for one specific purpose. The public was told nothing. Officially, these were routine exercises. Unofficially, every soldier who had served long enough knew what the drums meant. They had heard stories whispered in training camps and old war rooms about the thing that waited in the dark, and about the last time it had been freed. Most of those stories ended. The same way with entire fleets disappearing and only a handful of broken survivors drifting through space. The Council, however, refused to stop their search. The missing scout ships were now declared lost, but Admiral Sareth insisted that this only proved a larger rescue mission was necessary. He began organizing an armada to enter Black Reach, fully equipped with warships and troop carriers. The alien leaders supported him, hoping to recover not only the missing fleets but whatever technology or resources the Ninth Fleet might have found. The human ambassador did not attend the planning sessions. They stayed away from the noise and the pride, letting the Council rush toward its fate, far beyond the Council halls in the silent darkness of Black Reach. The distress signal still played its broken message every 30 seconds, and beneath it the drums beat on, slow and steady. The thing that had taken the Ninth Fleet had tasted prey again, and it was patient. It knew more would come. And when they did, it would be ready. Humanity knew this too, and that was why they said nothing. They were not hiding treasure, they were not hiding a weapon. They were hiding the truth, and the truth was that the hunt had only just begun. The alien who had served in the Ninth Fleet was kept under heavy guard in a secure medical wing far from the public eye. His body was weak, and his mind seemed to drift between the present and the past. Sometimes he would sit in silence for hours, staring at nothing. Then suddenly he would start screaming words in his own language, mixed with human phrases that made no sense. The doctors said his mind had been shattered by extreme trauma. His skin was pale and dry, as if he had not seen real light in months, and his hands shook constantly when the investigators tried to question him. He would only answer in short bursts, repeating fragments of events again and again. He spoke of corridors filled with shadows that moved like water, of bulkheads buckling inward with no explosion and no visible weapon, of red eyes blinking in the dark hallways following him from room to room. He said the sound of the drums never stopped, even when the ships were breaking apart. He said every time one of the fleet's ships vanished, the drums got louder and slower, as if savoring the moment one detail caught the attention of the humans. Listening to his story, he kept saying they looked human, but not human. Their faces were too still, their movements too smooth, as if they were built for killing and nothing else. To the other alien investigators, this was only another sign of his broken mind, but the humans in the room exchanged glances. They knew this description was not madness. It was memory, old memory. Humanity had seen those faces before in the dark days of their own history, before the rest of the galaxy had even known they existed. The Council officials dismissed his words, claiming he was imagining things out of fear. But in private, the humans began locking down more sectors of space, moving civilian ships away from any route that even passed near Black Reach. The alien survivor was not the only sign of danger. Small fragments of wreckage began drifting out of Black Reach, picked up by salvage crews hoping for valuable scrap. Most of the pieces were warped and twisted, as if they had been crushed by enormous pressure. Few were marked with the insignia of the Ninth Fleet, but others were strangers, showing burn patterns and damage no one could identify. One shard of black metal was brought to a human research station for analysis. Scientists there refused to discuss their findings, but the station went into lockdown the very next day. The Council debated endlessly in their chambers. Some members wanted to stop the search. Others wanted to send even more ships to prove their strength and recover the truth. The loudest voice still belonged to Admiral Sareth, who refused to believe in superstition or fear. He said the Ninth Fleet had been defeated only because they had been caught off guard, and that a stronger rescue mission could overcome whatever threat lurked in Black Reach. His arrogance drew cheers from some of the younger commanders, who saw the mission as a chance to prove themselves. Humanity's ambassador did not attend the final vote. Instead, they stayed in the human sector, meeting with military leaders in rooms where no recordings were allowed. What no one in the Council knew was that humanity's plan was not to rescue anyone, it was to contain the threat. They had faced it once before and learned the hard way that it could not be destroyed, only locked away. Black Reach had been that prison, a place chosen because its energy storms and gravity wells made escape nearly impossible. The prison had been quiet for centuries, until the Ninth Fleet entered and broke the seals without realizing what they had done. The humans had heard the drums long before the distress call had even reached the Council. That was why they had stayed silent during the early debates. They knew the thing in the dark would not stop with the Ninth Fleet, and every ship sent to find them only fed its hunger, the alien survivor continued. To waste away in his medical cell, he refused food and barely slept. His final words before falling into a coma were simple and chilling. "The drums are for you." His voice was so soft that only the human officer standing beside him heard it clearly. The officer did not repeat the words to the council. He simply walked out of the room and ordered the security teams to double the perimeter around. Black Reach, even then he knew it would not be enough. Meanwhile, the news channels across the galaxy kept showing images of the Ninth Fleet's proud banners alongside the mystery of their disappearance. Some turned it into entertainment, treating it like a great puzzle for the public to solve. Others used it to fuel propaganda, blaming rival species. Or even humanity itself. Humanity did nothing to correct them. Every hour, the distress signal continued its endless loop every 30 seconds. The same desperate plea followed by the steady beat of the drums for the rest of the galaxy. It was background noise for humanity. It was a reminder the hunt was not over. It had only paused, waiting for more prey to arrive, and the council was about to send it exactly what it wanted. Humanity's fleets moved quietly across the stars, away from trade lanes and curious eyes. Ships that had been scattered for years on patrol were recalled to hidden docks. Stations that had been dark for decades flickered to life again, running on old power sources few remembered existed. To the outside galaxy, it looked like simple military reshuffling, but to those inside the human command structure, it was something else entirely. It was containment preparation. Every move was calculated. 2 close invisible walls around Black Reach, not to keep anyone out, but to keep something in. The commanders knew that it was already too late for the Ninth Fleet and any rescue forces sent after them. They were not building for a fight to save ships. They were building for a fight to trap a predator. A secure war room deep under Earth's surface. The highest-ranking human officers stood around a table lit with a holographic map of Black Reach. On the map, red dots marked known ship disappearances. Blue lines marked the failed escape attempts from the region, and a single pulsing symbol marked the center of the void. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the map projector. Then the ambassador to the Galactic Council entered and spoke. Without ceremony, they've opened it. The officers did not ask what they already knew. The Ninth Fleet had gone into the prison humanity had built centuries ago and broken its seals. Those seals had not been locks on doors or walls. They had been barriers of energy, gravity traps, and hidden mines designed to hold something no one in the galaxy had names. Fourth creature or entity inside had no proper description. Humanity's oldest records spoke of it in vague shapes, impossible shadows, in endless eyes. Others described it as a moving hunger capable of shaping itself into whatever form would terrify prey the most. In ancient wars, it had appeared as armies of human-like killers, moving with unnatural precision, striking without sound until the only noise left was the steady beat of their war drums. No one knew why the drums were always there. Perhaps it was communication, or perhaps simply cruelty. Whatever the reason, humanity had learned the drums meant death, and that the only way to survive was to stay far from their sound. The Ninth Fleet had not known any of this when they entered Black Reach. They thought they were about to strip an abandoned human military site for weapons and technology. They ignored the faint drum beats at first, thinking them some kind of navigation anomaly, but every hour the drums grew louder until the first ship vanished without warning. There had been no flash of light, no explosion, just gone, and then the hunt began. The few survivors, like the alien in the medical wing, were proof of what followed: slow, relentless pursuit, ships being picked off one by one, until nothing was left. Humanity had built the prison because destroying the creature was impossible. Every attempt had failed. The only way to keep it from spreading was to give it a hunting ground and seal it away. Now the prison was open again, and the drums had spread beyond Black Reach. The council thought they were hearing the sound only in the distress signal, but humanity's deep space sensors had caught it in other systems, faint and distant, as if testing the edges of the trap. The officers in the war room knew they had days, maybe weeks, before it reached beyond the point of control. That was why old weapons were being brought back. Weapons the rest of the galaxy thought had been dismantled long ago. Massive orbital cannons, deep space mines, and pulse generators, designed to collapse wormholes instantly. These were not meant to defeat the Predator. They were meant to cut off every escape route, to starve it inside its cage. Outside human space, the Council's great rescue armada was gathering. Hundreds of warships from multiple species were forming a fleet to storm into Blackreach Admiral. Sarith was at its head, promising to recover the lost ships and destroy whatever enemy had taken them. Humanity had been invited to join but declined, saying their fleets were committed elsewhere. The Council saw this as further proof of cowardice. But the truth was that humanity did not intend to be anywhere near the Armada when it entered the hunting ground. The predator did not need more prey to follow out of the trap inside. Blackreach, the drums continued, steady and unchanging, as confident. In what was to come, they had no need to hurry. Their prey would come to them, as it always did. Humanity had no illusions about the outcome of the coming battle. They knew the Armada would vanish as surely as the Ninth Fleet had vanished. The only question left was whether they could seal the prison again before the thing inside followed the survivors back into the open galaxy. For the humans, there was no victory to be won. Only survival, and survival meant doing whatever it took to make sure. The rest of the galaxy learned the lesson they themselves had learned long ago. Those who hear the drums do not run toward them. Those who do will never return. The rescue armada left Council space in a blaze of confidence. Hundreds of warships moved together in a glittering line, their engines burning bright against the dark. Their crews were proud, eager, and certain of victory. The broadcasts followed them, live showing Admiral Sarith at the command bridge, promising that the missing fleets would be brought home, and the threat in black Reach destroyed his voice, carried across the galaxy, stirring hope among his people, and scorn toward humanity. The humans were nowhere near the launch. No ships, no support, no farewell speeches, and private human commanders watched the Armada's departure in silence. Their faces grim, as if attending a funeral. They could not stop. The first hours of the journey were uneventful. The Armada crossed into the edge of Blackreach with tight formations and active scanners. The energy storms flared, and gravity wells pulled at their holes. But the ships were strong, and the crews well-trained. They pushed forward, deeper into the darkness, reporting no sign of enemy activity. Then after 6 hours, the first ships at the flank went silent. No explosions, no alarms, just a sudden absence on the tactical displays. The crews still thought it might be a navigation hazard until the second and third ships vanished within minutes. This time, there were faint glimpses of movement. Something enormous passing through the shadows between them, and then the red lights appeared, hundreds of them surrounding the formation admiral. Sarith ordered weapons to fire, but the sensors struggled to lock onto targets. The enemy shapes moved too fast, too close. One by one, ships began to break apart, not from weapons fire, but as if something had torn them open from the inside. Comes were filled with screaming voices and panicked calls for help. The sound of drums began to echo through every open channel, slow and steady. A rhythm that grew louder with each passing minute. It was not coming from any known transmitter. It was inside the ships, vibrating through the holes and into the bones of the crews. The recordings, later recovered, showed the same thing in every vessel. Red lights moving through dark corridors, followed by silent, human-like figures with faces that never changed, tearing through everything in their path. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, the live feeds from the Armada began to cut out one after another. The last few transmissions were scrambled and filled with static, but fragments slipped through a camera feed showing a colossal silhouette moving between ships. Its shape-shifting and twisting like smoke. A soldier's helmet cam catching a pair of pale eyes staring at him just before the screen went black. An audio clip of the drums slowing to a deep heartbeat as the screams faded. The final image that reached the Council was from Admiral Sarith's bridge. The Admiral stood frozen, staring at something off-screen before the view shifted to a figure stepping into the light. It was human. Or at least it looked human, tall, with empty eyes and a faint smile. The drums pounded once more, and the feed cute in the Council chamber. Silence fell. The alien leaders who had mocked humanity's warnings now sat frozen. The human ambassador stood. Slowly, their expression unreadable, they said only 3 words: "We warned you." Then they turned and left without another word. Outside, in the human sector's fleets moved into position. The trap was being closed again. The surviving fragments of the Armada, if any, would not be allowed to leave Blackreach. Humanity's containment weapons were already primed to seal every jump route, every wormhole, every possible exit. The council sent urgent messages demanding help, but none were answered in. The darkness of black reached the drums, faded into silence. The hunt was over for now, and the predator would wait. It had fed well, and it knew more prey would come eventually. They always did. The humans knew it too, and they knew their work was never truly finished. The prison could be rebuilt, the roots could be closed, but the hunger inside would remain, waiting for the next fool to open the door. Far across the galaxy on human worlds, people went about their lives unaware of how close death had come. They did not see the old weapons being hidden again, or the fleets quietly returning to shadowed stations. Only the highest command knew the full truth. The Ninth Fleet was gone, the rescue armada was gone, and if humanity failed to hold the line, the rest of the galaxy would soon follow. But for now, the stars were quiet and the drums were silent. Humanity intended to keep them that way for as long as possible.